Welcome to this stateless codecast, and in this video we're going to take a look at trying to contribute to Ruby on Rails in 2025. So I had previously contributed in late 2020 to Rails. I have one other contribution from before we started recording these videos. That playlist is on the Stateless Code channel, and I'll link to it in the description of this video. That contribution I broke up into like 7 different videos. I'm hoping to achieve this down to one video or maybe a follow-up after it either gets merged or closed or whatever. But the Ruby on Rails is a open source web development framework. We have a lot of videos with stateless code that use Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and it's an open source framework. So in the event that you come up with notice a bug in the code or see something that you think you can make better, you have the ability to contribute to that code using GitHub, and that's what we hope to do in this example. So we'll start by looking at the issue that we're trying to provide a contribution for, and I created an issue on a kind of learning repo that I have. I'm going through Agile Web Development using Ruby on Rails 8, and in the section on authentication, went through it and noticed that the Rails authentication generator is providing routes that are not used by any of the controllers. So it's specifically the sessions resource and the passwords resources that are causing that issue. And if you look at the fix that I have in my local repo, it's going to look very similar, potentially changed depending on how the Rails version of Rubocop wants the item stylized. But you can see here I added resource session only, new, create, destroy, which are the 3 that are used in that controller in the authentication, and then passwords, accept, index, show, and destroy. And I went with only and accept there because I just go with whatever is fewer. So there are 7 default RESTful routes. If you have 3 or less, you use only. If you have 4 or more, you use accept. So that's what I'm trying to resolve here. If you go and look at Ruby on Rails itself, we're going to show you where in Ruby on Rails this generator is located. So we've got in the rail ties section here, you go to lib Rails generators, Rails authentication. And so going to take a look at the authentication generator here, and the parts that we're going to try to fix are specifically this def configure authentication routes section here. So instead of resources, passwords, param token, we want to specify the passwords in the session so that they're only dealing with the actions that are used by the controller. The reason why this is the case, I note it in the issue here. So in the Rails routing guide, it notes that you want to use only and accept to generate only the routes that are actually need. It cuts down on memory use, speeds up the routing process, and you see the section here, 4.8 in the Rails routing guide, restricting the routes created. So that's essentially what we're going to want to implement that standard in the authentication generator so that we have a similar outcome to how it's recommended in the guides. Also, just in general, you always want to restrict your routes to only the ones that you're using, even though Rails is really good from a security standpoint. Any unused routes are kind of a potential kind of attack surface that you're adding for people who may be trying to compromise your application. Even the best software exploits come up from time to time, and you need to try to address those things. But one of the ways that you can kind of passively resolve that is by reducing your overall attack surface. So we're going to take a look now in the Ruby on Rails guides. This is the routing section here. It's under controllers. There's also a guide on how to contribute to Ruby on Rails. The best way to do this is to go all the way to the bottom and then walk back up until you hit contributing. So there's a contributing, API documentations, guidelines, guides, guidelines. So if you're reading the Rails guides itself, you can and you find a typo or whatever, you can submit a request to fix that. And it's another way, even somebody who's not heavy into trying to fix or deal with the Rails code base itself, you can contribute to Rails in that way. So we're going to now follow the process for contributing to Rails. It says reporting issue is number 1. I typically wait until I've got the ability to create an attached pull request along with it. So we're going to come back to this one. I've essentially got the issue that I need here with the expected behavior and the actual behavior. I'm going to demonstrate the behavior in a new app. So we'll do that now. I'll pull up my terminal and we'll go new authgen. So we've got that. We'll go into the authgen directory and we'll do, let me hit clear here to get back up to the top, Rails, routes. So you've got a lot of routes here, and it's not the prettiest thing in the terminal, but we'll hit clear again and we'll do Rails routes -- unused. You can see that comes up empty, no unused routes were found. Now we're going to run the Rails authentication generator. And we've got the authentication generator. If we wanted to Rails DB migrate, and we've got our sessions and users tables now created, and we could go to a local host here. We don't have a root route set yet, but session new. We can see that it's there. Enter your email address, enter your password. So we've got the authentication generator into its initial state. We'll shut down the server here, clear, and we'll do Rails routes unused. And now we have those same unused routes that I had from the issue that I added on my local training repo. So we've reproduced the issue. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to now deal with the Rails code base. So you go to Rails. If you don't already have a fork, then you would choose fork this repo, or you could create a new fork. I'm going to choose my existing fork. And then from there, you have the ability to, you can see here, sync fork. So I'm going to update my branch. And now we can say it's up to date with Rails main. The next thing I want to do is clone the repo. This may take a while, so I'm going to pause and let this finish. All right, so I got an internal server error when I tried to clone this. I'm going to try it again. I'll just give it an alias as well. We'll try cloning it again. Hope it works this time. Rails is a large repo. It's possible for things to go wrong while that is happening, so we'll give it another go. All right, we're back. It took a while, but things finally cloned correctly. I got 502 errors, 503 errors, 500 errors, but we finally got our repo here. So we can go into MSD Rails. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, from that directory, I'm going to use VS Code and go code dot. Likely when this launches, it will make a comment about whether you want to launch it in the dev container. I had a previous video where I kind of set up dev containers for Rails development using the Rails Getting Started guide. Same process will apply here. I've already got Docker installed, so it should just work, I hope. Say yes, I trust the authors within reason. And then we're going to choose reopen in container here. This will take a while, so I'll pause the video, let it well, maybe it's not so. Oh, it's now connecting to it. So it's reopened, and we'll go from there. All right, so we got the dev container open, but there was an error at the end. Post create command failed. We'll see what happens here. I'll hit any key. Still says we're in the dev container. Create a new terminal. And it says we're in the workspace here. So what I'm going to do now is go to railties, lib, rails, generators, Rails, authentication, like this. Now that I'll extend this a little bit to the right, and we will also open authentication generator test. got copy routes and then 2 assertions about routes. So we'll start with our authentication generator. Configure authentication routes. So we're going to match this to what I see, what I have in my other repo here. Routes. Back to, this is our session. And then our passwords. So we'll save that. The test might still pass because it still might match that regular expression. We'll go to contributing and running tests. And let's see here, particular file, which is what we want. So, well, back in our, that's our real computer's terminal, not the container's terminal. So cd rail ties bin test. It will be, what is our relative path here? Test generators, authentication generator test. Okay. Go back to the root here. Bundle install. cd rail ties, reattempt execution of that. All right, so we didn't get errors. Now we'll make this config routes in both places. Make the I'll pause and write the code to make this match the session and the password. Actually, before I do that, I should probably run Rubocop on the generator file that I modified. Make sure it's in the format that Rails prefers. So search for Rubocop here. And then just the relative path. So go back. And this will be copy relative path. No offenses detected. I think we're okay with that format of the array, which is what you see in some of the controller generated code. So we will now modify this test to be more specific in both places. I'll pause and write that code, and then we'll review it. All right, so I'm back. I've got this replaced here in both places. I used a tool called Rubular, which is handy for validating or kind of testing out regular expressions. Do note it uses Ruby 2.5.9, so it's not the most up-to-date thing in the world. So something that's kind of different between 2.5.9 and 3.4, you couldn't rely on it for, but it's a handy tool nonetheless. So I use that. I've got it there. Now I'm going to attempt to run my tests again. That is Rubocop on that file. I'll also run Rubocop on the test file. Copy the relative path here. No offenses. Rerun the test. And we've got no failures. So we should be good now. Typically, there's one more thing that I'm going to do. So I'm not going to run the whole Rails test suite or the whole Railties test suite here, because I'm only dealing with a generator situation rather than actual kind of engine code or anything like that. But I am going to create a test app to test this in. Local development. Seed. I think there's a section there for creating a test app. Oh, here we go. So bundle execs Rails new my test app dash dev. So we'll go to the root of the directory there. This does take a minute on the container. All right, so we'll go cd my test app, and then we'll run Rails routes. Unused. Rails routes. We'll use the bin Rails here because it's potentially no unused routes found. Rails G authentication. We can see that in the output there it does have the route section there. Now we'll fig routes RB, and we can see that the resource there matches what I've got in my app. So the generator is working as intended. I think that's enough to go on. So we'll go back to my normal command line here. Get status. I'm only going to add the rail ties and for the two files that I'm dealing with into my commit. So I'll get going on that. What I'm going to do now is, now that it's ready for me to push it to my branch and open a pull request, I'm going to open the issue in Rails, and I'm actually going to open two pull requests here because I noticed earlier on in the routing section here, your application only an accept to generate the routes that you need, eliminating excess unused routed. That should be unused excess for eliminating unused routes. So I'm going to do a separate contribution for the Rails guide about routing because it's not related to my fix for the auth generator. And it notes when you're doing that, documentation. Here we go. CI skip. There's no dash, so I'll do that in the second pull request that I open. So go now back to Rails, and click on issues. Click on new issue, and I'll write my issue. It's going to look very similar to my issue I've got here in my Agile Web Development with Ruby on Rails 8 app. But I'll pause and write that, and we'll take a look at it. All right, so I've got my issue written here. You can go into preview here to see the expected information, and once this gets created, I'm going to hit create. We're going to use the issue number in the git commit message. So we're going to submit new issue, and our issue number is 54233. So we'll keep that handy. Now we're going to go back into the normal Rails here. We're going to add rail ties. Look at our status. It's just got the 2 files that we want. It only has the changes that we want. So we'll git commit s, and then we want in our commit message to reference that in the body. I'll pause and write my commit message here. So I've got my commit message here. Save it. Yes, I do want to save it. And I also need to update the changelog, which I neglected to do. We'll have to amend the commit to add it in. So this is the commit message example. Changelog is probably above that. Here's the changelog. So I will go to the Railties changelog here. All right, I'll pause and write my change here. All right, so I've made my change to the Railties changelog, and now I'm going to come back here. Git commit amend sign. Oh, I'm not on master, so we're going to go back and git switch C fix auth generator routes. And then in back to master, git reset hard to the commit before, switch back to the auth generator routes, git push u origin fix auth generator routes. Now I can go in and in my Rails, actually I can do it probably from here, compare and pull request. I want to go into Rails, into main, and we will create the pull request. So we'll let that happen. I will go back to my issue on my learning repo here, close it. I need to close that with a comment. And then we had one more thing that I want to do here. So we also need, I'll go back to master because these are independent fixes. Fix routing guide typo 4-8. And I want to take a look at the guides here. So from the see the different places here, wherever it says unused routed is what I'm going to search for. Rails guides, markdown, source, routing, looking for that 4.8. That's my fix here. We'll add guides. All right, I've got my commit message here. Now I want to push that to that branch name. Create the second pull request. Make sure I've got I skip in the square brackets. That's what I want. I'll create the second pull request. And we'll see how that goes. That is it for this part, so I'll wait for any feedback or revision requests on the pull request. If the maintainers decide that they want to merge in the pull requests, they can, and if not, they'll either provide feedback or ultimately choose to reject the contribution. And we will see you with more stateless code videos. Thanks for watching. And we've got an epilogue already. So in the past, when I've had contributions, sometimes it goes a couple months before they get reviewed and merged in. I got feedback on the pull requests and I went 1 for 2. So let's take a look at what happened. In the issue, you can see that it was closed as not planned. So there's a, this was done intentionally in one of the other files. Something similar was proposed and rejected by DHH. I actually don't agree with it, but it is what it is. I think that unused routes are, I think, potentially a source of an attack that you can have, that like it's not something that people typically put emphasis on, and that's the type of thing that somebody would potentially exploit because people aren't often thinking of defending their unused routes, and more code gets executed on when you try to match a route to a controller, and it is what it is. The other pull request that we had with regard to the routing guide did get approved and merged, so yay. And that's why also make those are independent changes. Make the pull requests independently so that if one of them part of it gets accepted, part of it gets rejected, you still get credit for a contribution. So that's it for this. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this Stateless Codecast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and spread the word. You can follow us on social media at Stateless Code. Until next time, keep coding and don't aggress against peaceful people or vote for others to do so on your behalf. So here I'm just updating the router, or the routing config, and I've got a stink bug on my